and he's very
Yes.
social. He's not a, how to say, he's not locked into himself. He truly does try to understand, which usually for the Libertarians is hard to put yourself in someone else's how to say
Yeah.
position and things like that. That empathy. Usually we tend to be low, have a difficulty with empathy. He has much less difficulties to have empathy with other people's.
Yeah.
Like just like think of how kids love him. Have you seen that? How kids love him? They go
Yeah.
like for him, for kids in Argentina, and that's why we have future. He's
Yeah.
like a superhero. He truly is. I'm kidding you not. He truly is for kids. Just imagine the future Argentina has. Think about
Oh
this.
yeah.
What's more important? The fact that he's literally changing the culture of kids. Kids actually refuting their teachers in class.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you. Hey, welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 190. This is also the 48th edition of the Javier Milei Show. I've got Ááron Sepúlveda-Cué back on the show. We're going to talk about Javier Milei and what's been going on lately. It's been a very interesting summer. We're now over 6 months of this presidency, and it's been looking very interesting. How are you, Ááron?
I'm doing great, and you?
I'm doing fine. You know, it's this has certainly been a. I think while he's not lived up to all the expectations, he's certainly been doing a great job and has been making a lot of progress. I'm really glad so far. What do you think?
I think in general, most and I mean, obviously, I don't agree with that. It's just that I think he has lived up to what is possible to achieve. He's not. I think I've been telling some people, so don't expect the first. And this isn't even in Argentina. So some of his opposers were saying like, "Hey, this doesn't look like libertarian. It looks much closer to some type of a Reaganite or Thatcherite regime." And I was like, "Yeah," because the bureaucracy in Argentina is quite literally like Soviet style. It's just massive. It's just that in order to clean it up, it's near impossible to say, yeah, I'm gonna make up something. I'm gonna get rid of all import restrictions so that all the imports come along, which will be great. Actually, that will help prices. But the problem is that people that work in the competing industries don't have a place to go because the labor market is so controlled by rules and regulations, or that it will be very difficult to move from one industry to another in Argentina, simply because the level of regulation is huge. So that's why he was saying, like, yes, I want to get things like, for example, just think about this. One of the most important, and they do it in Mexico since forever, they were very strict on imports because, all the city stuff that most statists tend to say. But they were saying, no, if it's a capital good, like production goods, yeah, that's fine. No, don't worry, that they can let it. But the problem that you have with things like this in Argentina is, okay, from one side, if I let a bunch of capital goods come in, that's great because production increases and all that kind of stuff. But then workers in those industries in Argentina cannot really just go and find another job.
Yeah.
Because the rules are so strict. So he's doing the right, if you ask me, he's doing the right thing by reducing the bureaucracy. So even if those regulations, because of Congress gives you a hard time, don't pass with a smaller bureaucracy, they're not going to be applied. So people have more freedom. So his focus on the bureaucracy, if you ask me, that's what I take it as a victory for the first, say, 1 or 2 years, because how massive, just imagine trying to get the Soviet system to look like Libertopia in 6 months. That's just not going to happen. The state is entangled in everything. And so how do you actually get all the freedom policies that we want when they were given a hard time? Actually, they just passed lots of the regulations through Congress, which makes it kind of nice because it's very difficult to pull back later on. But they gave him such a hard time. We honestly thought he wasn't going to be able to do it. So he was going to have to kind of do informal deregulation. And now finally, some way somehow, they got enough people in Congress with him, with his party being a minority in Congress. This is a huge achievement for people outside of Argentina. They're saying like, yeah, but he's supposed to do that. I said, no, dude, that was almost impossible to do, and he did it. It's just that we cannot see it from the outside. So that's why we have to keep our, and I think the expectation should be like this: the first 4 years, or at least 3 years, is going to look a lot more like a Reaganite, Thatcherite regime, and then the second one that will be a little more like what we expect. We expect them to do. There are things that are so insane, like closing the central bank. Closing the central bank was near impossible because they had this weird transformation of debt where they didn't want to show that the government, the treasury, with the national debt to look really bad. So what they did, which was hilarious, it was former administrations, right? They gave a huge chunk of the national debt, give it to the central bank for them to hold as an what we call asset. I hope that makes sense to your audience. Hold it as an asset, charge a lot less interest rates than what the market would ask. I'm gonna make up something. Let's say instead of charging, I'm kidding you not, 130% interest a year. Yes, that was the interest rate before Milei came along, 133%. So what before Milei happened, it was a lot of the national debt that was like in the 100% or something was given to the central bank so that it would charge the treasury, the government, let's say 50%, which is huge for me, you and I, but for Argentina, that makes perfect sense. Is prices are gonna rise like 100 and some, the interest rate should be, somewhat higher than, I mean, close to that. I hope that makes sense. And then at the same time, you had the former administrations told the central bank, okay, you take up on our debt, you charge us a lot less. You, central bank, you get into debt instead of us for the 133% a year. Now, libertarians have to figure it out. Do you understand sit down for a second? What is it that Milei has to fix right now before closing the central bank? The former administrations left a central bank with a gigantic debt and a very small asset. That's what people were saying, like, oh, they have, like, they used to call it has some weird names, negative reserves and whatever. One of the reasons was because they had very poor performing assets, investments, if you wish, that were related to lending money to the government directly. And at the same time, the same central bank had bigger debts for the 100 and some. Does anybody think, like, I remember it was something about like, oh, he hasn't decriminalized drugs, and I'm like, dude, to be honest, Argentinians have way more important, how to say, priorities over decriminalizing drugs. For the United States, makes sense. You don't want people in jail for, how to say, for like holding pot or whatever. But do you think Argentines are like, oh, I have I cannot open a business, I can hardly find a job.
Yeah.
But then some libertarians outside the United States tell you, no, 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 no. You having the freedom to get high, that's more important than your family. So let's just ignore it. Milei cannot do those things. And also he needs help from outside. He has to do policies that make sense to politicians outside of Argentina. And that's what's going to happen the first 34 years. He has to be consistent with what international, but because Argentina is a very small country. I mean, I think the confusion a lot of people have is because Milei's personality is so big, they unintentionally start thinking if he has the power, to change absolutely as if he was the president of the United States. But no, he doesn't have. I mean, he has the personality, but he doesn't have the power to just come along and say, well, Libertopia from one moment to another. No, there's a lot of things that libertarians are not happy in, how to say, in that he has performed in Argentina. And many of the times it's like, well, that's what I had to agree with the voting bloc. The voting bloc was mainly a bunch of conservatives, very similar to, let's say, moderate Republicans. If I don't do what the moderate Republicans, or in this case, moderate right wingers, ask me to, they're not going to support me for passing other stuff. So we have there's very serious trade-offs that have to be done. So a lot of people are going to have to live with the fact that the first 4 years are going to look like a Reaganite. That should be our expectation. And if people lower their expectation to, okay, we're gonna get some type of Reaganite for the first 3 or 4 years. Then people are gonna start understanding the difficulties of moving from status societies to libertarian societies is a gigantic bureaucracy in between, and he's trying to clean that up right now. And it's not easy because sometimes it was okay. I wish I could fire half of the bureaucracy in Argentina, but the problem is that the contracts, I have legal responsibility with these morons. Literally, just they call them bureaucrats that don't do anything. They call them gnocchis. It's a very, how to say, very popular label in Argentina. Almost everyone in Argentina that voted for Milei, their main goal was first and before anything else, you need to fire gnocchis, which is a bunch of bureaucrats that don't do anything and live off of, because they treat, and this is something very popular in Argentina. People almost everybody know, one side thinks that the government is an employment agency. Now, try to get that kind of country where where 40 to 45% of the population thinks that the government is an employment agency, that they're supposed to be hiring whomever cannot find a job. Anyone with no skills in the mind of the political system has to be hired by the government because the government is supposed to give jobs to anyone that cannot. Well, what do you think you're going to have in a political system like that? Just a bloated bureaucracy that unintentionally per se, well, intentionally a little bit, ends up pushing prices up like crazy because they don't produce anything, but they get paid with newly created money. What do people think is going to happen? I mean, it's just that the mess is so big that to have very high expectations, it's completely erroneous. The expectation we should have is that the first steps of the regime are going to be somewhat like a Reaganite or Thatcherite system, and then later he can move on to more libertarian version of what he's doing right now, and that's what we have available. That's it. There's nothing else that we can do.
That's pretty wild. Yeah, yeah, I think he's a lot better than Reagan, though, because Reagan, if you look at the record, didn't really cut much of anything.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one, by the way.
Yeah, but
it's gonna look like what Reagan promised.
Yeah,
because Reagan didn't reduce the size of the bureaucracy. So yes, and I think he won a lot of votes precisely because he was saying, yeah, this is going to be very similar to Reagan, and that helps you gain votes and support from people that are not libertarian. They just happen to be close to us, and you have to do it. We cannot win in the United States. We cannot win an election unless we have these massive alliances with people that are not libertarian, and usually tends to be people in the right wing. They're very I forgot the word. They're very friendly to free market ideas. Those are our only friends. You're gonna have to, and that means you're gonna have to do some trade-offs. You vote for us, we give you these policies that you like, but you need to give us policies that we like. And in Argentina, the advantage was that libertarians had a small voter base, but they had the guy that could move the masses. So between libertarians and say moderate conservatives, the agreement was, okay, you guys need votes, we need a guy that can actually move masses. Boom, there you go. That was the agreement, and it worked. And he has passed deregulation through Congress that I thought in Argentina was simply impossible, and he did it. So the steps are huge. It's just we have such a high expectations that we're like, that's not enough. Oh yeah, sure. For the first 3 or 4 years, it's not gonna be enough. Just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah, just recently the Chamber of Deputies actually granted Milei some more powers for a year. It's kind of amazing considering that he doesn't really have a majority. He got that. So what do you think is going to happen with this? I mean, and it's only 1 year, but
the reason why he was able to get that is because he agreed with moderate right wingers to join to vote for him, not just in the election but in Congress, and now he can perform a lot more libertarian. And the ones that everyone just expects is, for example, the one that I told you. Another one that is super important that I think he's going to end up doing finally, try to get rid of import taxes on capital goods, on production goods. For example, one of the big things that everybody in Argentina has to suffer is the prices of electronics, even household electronics, which is crazy.
Yeah.
They're over the top. I'm talking about not just more expensive, than they have lower purchasing power and a lot more expensive appliances. The
Yeah.
prices there are like, I'm kidding, like 100%, 200% more. It's just wild stuff.
Yeah.
And a huge chunk of that is just taxes. And this is the other problem. Can you get rid of taxes on import tariffs? Yes, probably I could. But in order to make sure that prices don't rise, because the central bank is a mess, you as a government have to, with taxes, get money out of circulation. That's what the central bank would do. The central bank will have good assets. There's too much money in the economy. Sell those investments to whomever wants them at a discount, but and take money out of circulation to control inflation. You can't do that with the existing central bank, because the existing central bank has garbage that sometimes is not even saleable by law. So think of this: just to try to fix the amount of money in circulation, he would have to first pass a law that says those investments that were forced in the central bank are going to have to be turned into saleable assets, saleable investments, so that we can sell them and then take money out of circulation. Now, think about the complexity of this operation in the first 7 months or 6 months. And it has to go through a lot of those motions. They're very deep. They have to go through Congress. When you go through Congress, what do you think they're going to ask you to do? We help you with this one, but you have to help us with something else that more than likely is not a daily return.
Yes.
That you see, the problems are massive.
Yeah, it really is interesting to see how hard it is to get rid of this once it's there. I mean, we're talking about somebody who weighs 500, or at least weighed 500 pounds, and they're trying to get in shape. It's not something that's going to happen overnight.
No, even your diet.
Yeah.
You cannot change it to like a super healthy diet from one day to another, because people are not even used to it. They don't have the I forgot habits, right? Habits and customs, protocols on a daily basis. You have to teach them, or they have to practice how to do the simple protocols or simple habits. And how long is it going to take? Forever. And we're like, hey, look, it's not just not losing weight. It's not eating what's perfectly right. So no, because we're trying to move away from eating a bunch of junk food. If you move from, let's say, I forgot what the worst food. You can probably help me with this one even better. I don't know, like a convenience store food.
French fries are as bad as anything.
Except and delicious, by the way. And
I don't even like French fries, but yeah,
I like them a lot. And you move from there to eat tacos. If you ask me, that's a huge just because it has some protein, and it's not the healthiest thing in the world. What it has, that's cheese, but that's the only thing you can achieve. That's it. I mean, maybe in 4 years, hopefully that will be amazing. By the way, but it's gonna take a lot. And that's the issue. It's gonna take way too much time, and a lot of trade-offs have to be done on the way. That sometimes they can be corrected later on, and sometimes they cannot be corrected. We're gonna have to live with it. I mean, the Reagan example is kind of good. Remember when I was a kid, I used to idolize Reagan. Later, I figured out that what he did to the budget and to the levels of national debt were like over the like. So I went the other way, and then later when I grew up, I grew a little bit older. I figured, I said, dude, the only way that you could lower taxes literally was by promising Democrats, yes, I'm gonna spend more money. Like, what else do you do if you cannot pass deregulation and and lower taxes? And the only way for you to pass those two is by promising the other side in Congress that you're gonna spend more on the little things that they want, or that you're not gonna lower spending. What's the decision? To not do anything? No, there you go. Well, that's it. You have to do it, and those are good examples. And those are good examples that people have to keep in mind. Thatcher and Reagan, they wanted to do a lot of they wanted to follow a little bit more, like, let's say, like a Hayekian view in general, at least the practical one, because they were very influenced by Hayek. and
Yeah.
not everything is possible. I mean, not everything's available, even more so in politics, because the trade-offs are huge. People are not going to support you. People are not going to support you unless you give them something heavy on return, and that's not going
Yeah.
to be really return. But what can we do?
Well, what happened with Reagan was, it's like, well, you increase military spending, we'll increase welfare spending. So they both got to increase more spending that they wanted, which is why the deficits went through the roof. And
Exactly.
that genie has never went back into the bottle.
No, and there's nothing okay.
Yeah.
A little bit with Clinton. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
there were some balanced budgets under Clinton. We haven't had balanced
Yeah.
budgets since then, because then after that we had the World Trade Center, and that really was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I'm actually like right now. I just look at my one of my favorite Austrian economists, Spanish speaking, Juan Ramon Rayo. Highly recommended that you guys read anything you can find of him.
Juan Ramon Rayo.
Yeah, right. Juan Ramon Rayo. Highly recommend. And he's literally just talking and said, guys, the Argentine state, the national state, it's a quebrado means, I think, when you're it's broke. Yeah, when you have more debts than assets. In English, it's called insolvent. There you go. It's insolvent.
Yeah,
It is an insolvent. It is an insolvent state. That's what Milei got. Like whatever else that you can imagine about, like, Milei doesn't like. I'm trying to think. Oh, Milei's values are too conservative to be a libertarian. So I don't know. I heard people say that because he opposes abortion, and he has been very critical of feminism, if I remember correctly. And I said, dude, he's facing an insolvent state of 50 million people in a country that produces food for like 200 million people, and 50 million people cannot be properly fed. That's a bigger concern than any other of your social preferences or whatever. Literally, like there's no comparison of the major issue of the massive problem that Milei is facing right now. And the whole administration, it's not just him. You see, a lot of people know that, like, the vice president is really good. The lady Diana is also yeah, she's really good.
Yes.
And they've been actually performing really well in the way to communicate their ideas. They've been doing really good, but they have very, very huge limits to what is actually achievable, because the opposition, I'm trying to think, the opposition will be, think about the most strident Democrats in the United States, the most strident ones that you find annoying every time, like, you don't see them all that much, but the ones like, that's too much. That's the average opposition of Milei. The most annoying, incoherent, status nonsense. This is just average in Argentina.
Yeah.
That's why it's super weird. Just like you're gonna have a Milei and a great group of libertarians, like everything in Argentina, everything is extreme. Like every good idea and every bad idea first came from Argentina, no matter what, because they're very talented people. But what's the problem with a lot of talent? You can use talent for good, but you can use talent for evil. And he has to face these challenges that are huge. Like there's, for example, the former presidents, the one that was Christina Kirchner. Yeah, sometimes they go at it on on Twitter. Very well spoken, very good communicator. And the things that she was saying about economics were absolute nonsense, but she was saying them really well. Super nice. So you see, she was using her communication talent to speak absolute nonsense that very few people can actually comprehend. No, that's nonsense. But that's the kind of thing that that he's facing. She's not the only one like that. Very talented people that have terrible ideas, and he has to battle huge talent with bad ideas, with huge talent and good ideas. So it's not gonna be easy.
Yeah. I think my lasting image of Christina Kirchner will be her giving people the finger on her way out. I mean, that really just tells you what she really thinks about everybody. This is the one thing, too, that I've noticed among Milei is that I think he genuinely likes everybody, which is hard to do if you're a libertarian, but I think he does.
Such a good insight.
Yeah.
That's such a good
there's also something I definitely want to show here. I've been meaning to show this. It's a good time to show this.
He's a very social. I mean, I think that's an advantage of having a libertarian coming out of Argentina.
Yeah.
They're very social, very friendly. on their personality. Even when they're like rough per se or direct, you pay attention. They're actually being nice. Like, oh, they're being very social, and he's very
Yes.
social. He's not a, how to say, he's not locked into himself. He truly does try to understand, which usually for libertarians is hard to put yourself in someone else's, how to say,
Yeah.
position and things like that. That empathy. Usually we tend to be low, have a difficulty with empathy. He has much less difficulties to have empathy with other people's.
Yeah.
Like, just that, you know, like, think of how kids love him. Have you seen that? How kids love him? They go,
Yeah.
what, like, for him, for kids in Argentina, and that's why we have future. He's
Yeah.
like a superhero. He truly is. I'm kidding you not. He truly is for kids. Just imagine the future Argentina has. Think about
Oh
this.
yeah.
What's more important? The fact that he's literally changing the culture of kids. Kids actually refuting their teachers in class
This
because
is so
something they learned
beautiful.
from Milei. Yeah. Now I
Yeah.
get you. It will be nice to have full on decriminalization of drugs, but to be fair, that's irrelevant next to changing, how to say, next to the future. Imagine you're going to have
Yeah.
a libertarian utopia in the future, and for some reason, most of the drugs are still illegal. I'm okay with that. Not because I think it's good to have them illegal, it's just because there's so many other, and this is the other one, it's priorities.
No.
What the concern you have inside of libertarian circles is that there's no notion of priorities.
Yeah.
Like, literally no notion. Like, whatever their favorite pet topic is, if you don't go along, necessarily you're not a libertarian. So, dude, there's so many different issues that your pet issue is not libertarian priority. I'm not saying it's not a libertarian issue. What I'm saying is that there's no conceivable way that a libertarian that is the head of a state of 50 million people, of a country that produces enough food to feed 200 million people. Oh, and by the way, that there's a bunch of natural resources, just raw materials, they're totally not exploited. Like, the same bunch of the areas, Chile is a smallish country, if you wish, at least
Yes.
population size. And it's noticeable that they having, like, there are certain areas, usually in their, how to say, in their border, where obviously the environment is very similar on both sides. In one side, they take full advantage of their mineral resources. In Argentina, they do not, because the former administrations were always crying about, like, no, but we don't want to sell our nation to foreigners. And I said, dude, that's just idle resources.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Changing kids' view of the future
Yeah.
and fully using Argentina natural resources, it's way more priority, like, by far. Oh, and closing the central bank, which is a pain.
Yeah. Well.
Than
Well.
every other, even foreign policy, which I like. That's something I care.
Yeah.
But honestly, that's not priority. It shouldn't actually. It will be wrong if Milei makes those topics a priority over the quickest possible well-being of the Argentine people.
Yeah, because Chile, is certainly known for exporting a lot of copper, but Argentina is hardly doing any copper mining at all. And apparently they have the same kind of copper reserves, but they're not
Yeah,
doing anything with them.
yeah. Just imagine doing nothing, sitting down, doing
Yeah.
nothing, and it's a pain to pass. And if you want to pass this to the Congress, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to literally pay heavily for the for the opposition to vote for it on certain things that probably are going to be actually negative. And you have to do the how to say, the net benefit, the marginal cost and marginal benefit analysis.
Yes.
That libertarians are really good when we talk about economics with regular people. Oh, look, you're not doing marginal cost and marginal benefit analysis. And, like, dude, when you talk about libertarian applying libertarian policies, you literally have to do the same thing: the political cost and the political benefits before even thinking of the economic benefits, which most of the time they tend to be so, because it's literally just a bunch of resources laying down, nobody's taking advantage, and just next door, Chileans have been taking full advantage since a long time ago, and you can see it in their lifestyles. Their quality of life is much higher than the average. Now, this is where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
The average. Now, the upper class in Argentina, I think they have it better. Just so you guys know that. Like, actually, that's why a lot of foreigners move to Argentina, because if you make some good money, let's say, I'm kidding you, like $4,000 a month, dude, you're gonna be a king. because the lifestyle in Argentina is if you have good resources, your income is good. Lifestyle in Argentina is probably one of the best places to live on. Now the problem is that regular Argentines having how to say their wages have been dropping in real terms since the
Yeah.
last 20 years because it has been designed that way just to make sure that everyone has a job all the time. Well,
Yeah.
true, everyone has a job, but the living standards have been falling since at least 2011, and he has to push that back.
Yeah, inflation is the worst form of corporate welfare and charity for the rich that's ever been devised. It's so evil. When you and that's another thing too is it seems like in the last 6 months the peso has stayed about the same versus the dollar and some other currencies.
It just devalued the last 2 days, just so you know that.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly why it happened. By the way, to our audience, I highly recommend for you guys to get into something that is called yerba mate. It's a pretty good drink, and it's very Argentine in age. It helps you see
that is very much a Argentine
an Argentine thing.
drink, yes.
It helps you with a lot of things. And one of the main things, since when you turn it into your habit, it helps you with things like overeating and smoking cigarettes. A lot of people use it to stop smoking, and actually works really well.
Well, here's something, and I'm looking at a chart here. I'm just decided to, and since I decided not to, sometimes I like to go against Mexico. So in December, you have the 1 Argentine peso equal 0.021 Mexican pesos.
Oh, relative to the Mexican peso?
Yeah, related to the Mexican peso. And now it's 0.020. So that's about the same as the Mexican peso now. So that's going from 0.021 to 0.020. It's small. It's devalued a little bit, but that's
actually a hard one to figure out because sometimes did you find it on Google?
Yeah, you can find all these on Google. I just felt like
if it's just Google, like the first thing you find in Google, usually they give you that wrong exchange rate from the Argentinian side because they give you the government control exchange rate. They don't give you the. So if you guys, for our audience, if you guys want to know what's happening with the exchange rate in Argentina, don't use whatever Google says at the beginning. You have to look for something that is called blue dollar. The blue dollar is the market rate that used to be illegal before Milei. Milei made it legal so that people don't have to. I'm kidding. Some of you guys probably know this. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Have you ever heard of cuevas, which is like I don't know in English. I don't know how you call it in English. It will be like caves. There you go, caves. Because before Milei, it was illegal for you to freely exchange dollars. You had to exchange them with the government. It was funny because you can only do it with the government, but the government says, no, the only thing you can change is $200 max, and that's it, which is weird, but okay. So they made it illegal for people to get dollars on the streets. Everyone wants dollars. They didn't want the Argentine peso to save. So guess what? The black market was going to take care of that, and it became like a cultural thing. Everyone else I went through and they said, oh, don't worry, go to a cueva. It was perfectly illegal, but it was perfectly fine culturally to say, yeah, you're a foreigner. You probably want to go to a cueva because they give you a better rate than even when you pay with a credit card. Yeah. They give you a good rate, but when you go to cuevas, they give you even better rate because that's more realistic. So my recommendation is to look for the blue dollar. That's the one, and it's not a bad idea, by the way. I'm glad that you're using that one, Chris. To compare it to the Mexican peso for at least short-term explanations, because for foreigners, they probably mean about this Argentina and Mexico economies being the same, although they're not, but mean the same. So it can tell you what's going on outside. The only problem is that what you find online more than likely is going to be the official government rate that is not realistic. That's Be careful with that one. But if on a daily basis, try to look for blue dollar. That's the fancy name. It was hilarious because he was back in the days he was the black dollar because it was the black market, right? But it became so common in the culture that it wasn't like, okay, sure, it's technically legal, but even police officers would actually go to cuevas and say, hey, look, I have all these pesos. I don't want to, let me get rid of them. So
I found a site out there actually called bluedollar.net, and it does look like their blue dollar rate is still For example, it says where's the official rates, or there's the official rates, the bank rates. The bank rate is 911, 914 buy and sell, but the blue dollar rate is, the informal rate is 1375
That's
to
the realistic one.
1405. Yeah, so it's still quite a discrepancy there.
Yeah, and think about it. It's official rate, then bank rate,
Yeah,
and then they have a and then every bank has a different one. This is and the differential between the informal one or blue one and the official rate, many times the government has to cover the difference because the weird relationship they have with exports and sometimes imports, that it's kind of like an agreement. Hey, if it gets out of hand, you cover me in exchange of me giving you all this money. Well, for example, in Mexico, which we're glad that the former administration, well, same administration, because it's just how to say, the president that is leaving, it's pretty much from the same party and everything of the new president that is going to come. No matter how bad they are, they haven't been messing around with imports and exports. In Argentina, they haven't, former administrations have been messing around with exports and imports since forever, and that's great when things go well for the, well, that's well for the Argentine government when things go well with exports. But if they don't go well just 1 year, it creates a huge debt. They were complaining that when Milei came along, had to increase the money supply in pesos, not physical pesos, but the sort of financial electronic version of it, the one that doesn't touch the streets. He had to create a lot of them just to get rid of a debt they had with the importers. A way for the government of Argentina, former administrations, to get resources from outside of Argentina, because obviously no country can ever be self-sufficient. They would do these crazy tricks to say, "Oh, you know what? You importer, because I want you to bring certain products. Instead of subsidizing you, like literally give you money for bringing exports from outside, I'm gonna give you a better rate, and I cover the difference." But you see, the problem is that that's no different than than just giving a subsidy, right? But they cannot call it they couldn't call it a subsidy. They had to work around calling it a subsidy. And what they say exchange rate parity or some garbage like that. But yeah, but it was just a subsidy. Say, okay, look, we're gonna give you a better deal for you, and that the difference between the reality and the deal that I'm gonna cover it. That's just a subsidy. That's it, straight out. And Milei comes along, has this massive thing about to explode, and says, "What do we do? Is it just pay them what you owe them?" Oh, because there were some times that difference couldn't really be covered, so they would pay the difference with a debt. I'm kidding you not. They would tell importers, "Look, I don't have enough dollars to pay you. Let me promise to pay you a certain amount of money over time." That we're giving, just increasing the national debt one way or another. And it wasn't on the books because it was something from outside. So it was a mess. And Milei said, the only thing we can do is just to use pay off so we can get rid of this already. Now, does that look bad? Yes. But that's how bad things were when they came along. So that's why that differential between the blue rate and the official rate, it's always a big deal. It's because that causes more expenses for the government, because that's the way that it was designed back in the days. And they cannot just take it out like that, because imports and exports are super important for Argentina. And if they just let it go like that and they don't deregulate, that's why the big issue on the latest rules that were just passed, it was amazing. We didn't think about it. It was the labor, the labor rules where you can freely hire and fire people. You couldn't do that before. Now you can. Well, okay, now that opens opportunity to get rid of all the imports, import taxes, so that the capital goods, production goods, can get into Argentina, and the economy can fly. And they tell you specifically. Like, I remember, like, Milei has said several times, we need to get rid of all the exchange rate restrictions and rules with exports and imports so that the economy can grow. He tells you that. I mean, he knows better that he needs to do that. He says, but I cannot do it right now because of the mess. I could actually end up creating tons of inflation, simply because when we get rid of them, the rates are going to be a mess, and everyone's going to try to get rid of their pesos. and getting rid of their pesos is going to push prices up like crazy. And what's the problem? As of now, all wages are paid in pesos. They're not paid in dollars yet. In the meantime, what do you have to do? You need to make sure that that the exchange rate of the Argentine peso, which we want to get rid of it, by the way, but in the meantime, we have to make sure they're somewhat stable because Argentine wages are in pesos, and they're right now they're rarely going up as of the last 2 months. Why? Because the economy is finally restructuring. And one of the reasons why it's restructuring and their good expectation for the future is because the labor market has finally been liberalized. For Argentines, this is huge. For you and I, it doesn't mean much. Oh, that's great, labor. Oh, and if you have friends in Europe, that's pretty much what the problem is in Europe. And they tell you, oh, I hate America. And some of my friends that are leftists in Europe say, oh, you can actually just get a fire whenever they feel like it. And I'm like, you mean terminate the contract when you don't want to do business with somebody? Like that for Argentine political class and for the European political class, this idea that you as an employee ever gonna end a contractual relationship with one of your workers, for them is like how does it for them is like one of the most foreign ideas ever. Like they literally think that if someone gets a job, it should never lose it no matter what. Well, what do you think is going to happen? A bunch of people that never do anything, they don't move a finger. Actually, that's why they were like a lot of the opposition in Argentina is not regular people. It's just a bunch of employees of the government. That's it. That they are not used to having to go look for a job because the government will provide jobs no matter what. And Milei said, well, that's going to stop. It's just too expensive for the Argentine people, for taxpayers specifically, uh, to support everyone and anyone under any given circumstance. It just was not possible.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things. It makes you realize just how difficult it is to pull a country out of a mess like this.
Exactly.
I don't think a lot of libertarians have ever thought about, the paths from getting from where we are now to here. It really also makes me a lot less optimistic about ever reforming America, just because I think America is a whole lot more corrupt. It's a larger country. It's more people. It's more entrenched. There's more crooks circulating around America. I don't know how America can be reformed at this point. It's
well, you see that the problem is there any country like that could be reformed like that?
Yeah.
Actually, it is very difficult because the states are expected to do so much today. Yeah. Trying to remember, I follow a lot of guys that are called MMTs. I don't know if you ever heard modern monetary theory. Not because I agree with them. They're kind of like hyper Keynesians, but they know some of the legal stuff in the United States, and pretty much they know those stuff really well. That usually most libertarian economists we don't care for. But it kind of makes sense because even Hayek said, hey guys, no, before studying, study economics, but you have to study also the legal framework in which those exchanges happen. That's it, right? And so, for example, some of those, let's say Keynesians or let's say left-wing economics people, they would openly tell you, say, well, you know what? We live in a social democracy, welfare state, social democracies. I remember someone saying that. And therefore, and they just keep on going. People are not libertarian. The expectation is that the government is going to provide not just welfare, but also a job. Well, how do you change that? Even in the United States, there are people like that is supposed to be a little more free, culturally speaking, more free market. Imagine going to other countries that the expectation is actually even heavier. Europe, or or in this case, Argentina, where large parts of the population, all you need is like 40% of the population that doesn't want to, that wants the government to cover all their concerns to make a mess out of the country. How do you get the other 60, 57% to support you against that mentality? That mentality has to change. And that's that's one thing so positive about the kids, because the kids look at Milei as a superhero, and that's exactly what we want. We want a bunch of libertarians that kids look at them as superheroes.
Yeah, and they've also eliminated a 1.5 tax that was applied to all property sales, so that's going to make it easier to people buy and sell real estate.
and that lowers the cost of living. It literally did in Buenos Aires for sure.
And here are some things, Kirchner. Here are some things that was done. In the last 20 years that weren't done. Public spending went from 20% to 46% of GDP. Public employees went from 2 million to 4 million.
There you go.
They stole all the private pensions. They subsidized gas, electricity. 50% of the population was on social plans. They incorporated millions of retirees without contributions. They very high withholdings on exports, exchange restrictions, renationalization of a dozen companies that immediately went back to deficit. Established multiple layer of approvals for imports, bribes, export prohibition, and freezing of prices under penalty. It's just such a mess.
It's a bureaucratic mess
Yeah.
that U.S. libertarians are going to have to wrestle with. There's no easy way out of it. So
yeah, and interesting too. If you look 2012, the poverty rates. Chile was 2%, Argentina was 4%. Now 2022, Chile is 5%, Argentina is 36%. So yeah.
You said poverty rates?
Yeah, poverty rates. Yeah.
Oh no, they're much higher. They were left. We were actually having a discussion. Poverty rates were in 49% when he arrived, and the calculation, we still don't have the data, but some people went up to say it was 55%, that it went from like 49 to 55% during the devaluation. But wages are rising right now, so by now poverty rates should be going down, and industrial production is increasing by now already compared to what it was left. So those poverty rates are gonna significantly did change. I think at least we're back to like 50%, but they were like in the 50%. They were high 40s before Milei came along. So that we have to keep that in consideration.
And as a general rule, governments report poverty being lower than it actually is. That seems to be the case. But
imagine they had to report 49.
Yes, there's something else too I want to show. It's a great little clip here. It's just one of those things I always say, if you really want to know a man's character, do not judge him by how he treats other people. Judge him by how he treats.
Dogs. I love him. He always does it.
He loves dogs. No doubt about that. That is just. I don't need to know anything else. Of course, he's got 4 and he cloned them.
He got what?
He has 4 dogs, and he apparently made them clones of one another or something like that. It's a.
That one is, he had one very good dog that was very helpful for him when he went through hard times. I'm gonna make up something, say 15 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And he loved him so much. And before he died, he came to the United States, cloned his dog Conan, which is the first one, so that he could have 3 identical clones to him, which are the 3 dogs that how to say?
Yes.
That he has right now. He has all the. Someone asked me about those kind of things, and I said, "What's going on?" Because it looks like I'm not even sure he did, right? That he went through some type of spiritual guide or whatever to try to talk to his dead dog for advice or whatever. And then I usually make that look, dude, this is Latin America. Eccentric people in Latin America do things that are even wilder than this. So that's not even like, I remember like I dated a girl when I was young. I remember she told me, I didn't understand why she did it, but she was going through hard times when she was young. Like, I'm going to make up something. I think I dated her when she was like 18, 19. And when she was 16 or something, she was having a hard time with her family. She actually went to like you're talking about like a very well-educated, upper middle class, perfectly rational, but he was going through such a hard times. They went to like a how do you say, tarot reading, like tarot reading. I don't know how to pronounce it in English. Like they get some cards and they tell you what's gonna happen in the future or whatever. That's so common. Like literally, it's just like even among educated classes, because it's a cultural thing. It's weird. You say, yeah, sure. I mean, eccentric people do. The joke I made last time is like, my dad, he was kind of famous because he was a bullfighter, and the eccentric things that he did were like wild. Like I'll give you one example that is usually the one my students love. My dad, I'm kidding, this is not an exaggeration, it just sounds weird. My dad, at one point, among many things that he did, he was chased down in the Amazon rainforest by a tribe in the Amazon rain. He, don't ask me how he got there, right? Like
Yeah.
he's from Mexico. He went to the Amazon rainforest, and then there was a tribe that was chasing him down. You're not gonna believe this one, because that tribe had never, like the chief of the tribe, had never seen a man with hair on his chest. So they wanted to hunt him, so that the tribal chief could keep his how to say my dad's chest,
Chest
because
hair.
they, yes, so he could have it like a trophy. And I'm like, dude, when they told me weird things about Milei, I was like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
good. That,
you do not mess. You got to be careful in the Amazon rainforest. If you think some danger, there are gangs that hang out in the Amazon rainforest too. They just, that
it's weird, right? I mean, and what I'm saying is these eccentric, weird stories or whatever, they're super common. I mean, think about like secret societies and garbage like that. All of the weird, eccentric things and protocols that they use and all that kind of stuff that people from outside are super weird. Look, let me break it to you guys. There's a lot of like US presidents that used to be in those kind of things. That's nothing strange that eccentric people are gonna do absolutely weird stuff. That's just the way they are. And an eccentric personality like that can be used, and very smart at the same time, can be used for good and for evil. And in that battle, you're gonna have some very weird things happening. So that's just the way it is.
I think it's just so. Milei also got this award in Spain. I mean, he went back to the second time he's visited Spain since he was been president. So he seems to meet up with some of the people from Vox there and
They're my friends, actually. Like that the Juan de Mariana Institute. If you guys can follow them, I would recommend it. But they're the best libertarian.
Institute. Yeah,
Juan de Mariana Institute is the best Spanish-speaking libertarian think tank. Amazing. It's a great place. I highly recommend it. And that's why he went over there. On top of that, if I remember correctly, he also visited the Madrid. I really need to go. Historically, and I guess I just absorb it unintentionally. Madrid has one odd thing: is one of the cities, urban how to say areas where usually the right wins, not the left.
yeah,
In Mexico, the main capital, Mexico City, the left always wins, no matter what. In
yeah,
Argentina, I'm not completely sure. I think they go back and forth once in a while. But in Madrid, Spain, so usually the left wins in Spain, not because of the capital, but because how they vote in the other cities. So Madrid, the mayor of Madrid and the institute, Juan de Mariana Institute, both received Milei just a couple of weeks ago, and that's great because Ayuso is the name of the lady that is the president, the mayor of Madrid. She's really, 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 really good at how to say
yeah,
on free market stuff, and very pragmatic. I really like the fact that she doesn't get hung up on ideological battles. She's very how to say results oriented,
yeah,
and that makes a big deal. And that's the other thing, libertarians, guys, just focus on results. Don't focus. Oh, it's because one of my complaints is that when we start learning about ethics and the debate between deontological and utilitarian or whatever, I think ends up hurting people's capacity, or libertarians' capacity, to analyze real life, because then they start thinking of everything in terms of principle and not in practical version. For some of you guys that know a little bit of political theory, I consider myself a Hayekian, but the main reason why I'm Hayekian is because Hayek was very follow. If you guys are familiar with Edmund Burke, Edmund Burke is usually considered a conservative, right?
yes,
But the reason why he was considered a typical conservative, I think very moderate, is because for him was like, on one side, so the most important value you can ever have in public policy is prudence. Just think about this. It's not ideals. It's not idealistic stuff. It's being prudent. You don't want to disrupt very heavily the daily lives of of citizens. You just don't
Yeah.
want to do that. Like, it's not that ideological stuff are bad. I remember Burke was one of the first signatories against slavery. He says, yeah, this is wrong, we need to fight it. But
Yeah.
that's different than spending all of your life as if you can actually achieve these things from one day to another. And if it doesn't happen, cry about it day in and day out. No, you're gonna have to kind of, like, wrestle with a lot of things that oh, this is kind of odd because for a lot of people don't think of conservatives being that way. But one of the reasons why Burke is so famous among rational conservatives, if you wish, or the good side of conservatism,
Yeah.
it's because he was saying that you have to understand that people think differently.
Yeah.
When you have a bunch of different groups with different values, you in the position of government or a political activist, you're going to have to wrestle with the fact that there's going to be large number of groups of people that don't agree with you because they don't even have the same we call it horizons of pre-comprehension, which will be worldview or axioms, if you wish, from where you're not starting from the same place. So you're going to have to find a way to get along with people that have very, very deep differences with you. And in order to do that, more than anything, more than ideological, you have to be prudent. Do not disrupt, because when you have a lot of multi ideological abuse, any misunderstanding can cause riots and can cause tremendous, which is what I think happens in the United States. There's a lot, culturally speaking, there's so much tension because nobody's prudent. Like, prudence, if you notice, just go through how to say, go through Twitter. I promise you, you're never gonna find the word prudence on
Yeah.
Twitter, except if you follow my, how to say, once or twice a week, once or twice a month, you're gonna hear me talking about prudence. You have to be prudent. And now, if you actually go back to the case of Argentina, no matter how much we don't like the fact that he's not, we don't have a Libertopia right now already built by Milei in 6 months, he has to be prudent. A lot of his voters are not libertarians. We have to wrestle with the fact that a lot of the people that are going to help us implement libertarian policies are not libertarians. So we're going to have to wrestle with them, talk to them, try to persuade them, or when we don't persuade them, at least get to some type of agreement and face trade-offs. People don't, and that's the issue of imprudence. A prudent person accepts opportunity costs, accepts trade-offs. A lot of libertarians are not ready for that because they're more focused on the ideological part of it, which is great, it's amazing, great to discuss it. But when you apply it to people that don't agree with you. How do you apply libertarian policies on a large group of people that, let's say, 40 to 60% are openly not libertarians or even don't care enough about political theory to worry about that? They just happen to like Milei, so they voted for him. That's it. I mean, kind of cool. The guy was coming out on TV very often, and he looks like he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, let's vote for the guy. It has nothing to do with someone persuading them that libertarianism is the greatest thing in the world. No, they're
Yeah.
more indirect and more effective ways to persuade people than to talk about ideology day in and day out.
It's Burke was certainly very much Burke actually did support the American Revolution, but he was opposed to the French Revolution because he thought the French Revolution was just too excessive. Sometimes I think conservatism can just be summed up by the attitude of, before you tear down a fence,
Yep.
find out why the fence was put up in the first place.
Yep.
And sometimes we tend not to do that. But, it's also been very interesting, though, to learn about that there's this, you mentioned Juan de Mariana, this great tradition of Spanish liberalism, which we don't here in America, we just don't know that much about it, but it's, with the school of
Ortega
and some of these other people.
Think about how Spanish-speaking libertarianism and the ones that the ones that we read were heavily influenced by Ortega y Gasset. Have you guys ever heard of him?
Oh yeah, I've definitely heard of Ortega y Gasset, but he's more recent.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Ortega y Gasset. I don't know if you ever heard of Nisbet. Nisbet is kind of like a localist. He wants everything decentralized kind of thing.
Yeah. Ortega y Gasset was from 1883 to 1955. Nisbet, but also Cervantes and Francisco Suarez, and
yeah. So
these are some people going back. I mean, I've heard that these people even influenced.
One of the most important, among many, right? One of the most important insights from Ortega y Gasset.
Yes.
2 things that I can share with libertarians. The first one, from Ortega y Gasset, and then Nisbet applied it. Oh, you probably like these topics. In the 50s, Nisbet was complaining that people were discussing marriage as companionship. Okay.
Yeah.
Nisbet comes along, Robert Nisbet, and says, he's a sociologist, right-wing sociologist. He says, "Are you guys crazy? So marriage is a political and economic institution." And in order to make his case, he quotes Ortega y Gasset, and he says, as Ortega y Gasset said, people don't get together to be together. People get together to do something together. It has literally, if you call that marriage and friendship, every human relationship is not compatible. Let me break it to you. You can get companionship from a dog, literally. Like that's it. When you get together with people, is to do something together, and that's something libertarians have to learn. You want to get together with, you want to change society, okay? Then you're gonna have to do something with them, with the people you like and the people that you don't like. You're gonna have to live with it, and there's gonna be some trade-offs. And another one from that I found fascinating from Ortega y Gasset, I don't remember what was the context that he had to respond on. And by the way, Ortega y Gasset has huge influence in Argentine libertarianism through one of the best Austrian philosophers, epistemologists, called Gabriel Zanotti. Zanotti has brought some of his ideas.
Gabriel
Zanotti, one of the best libertarian thinkers, because he's an expert on epistemology, not just like some general philosophy. He knows his economics really well because he has learned it, but his main specialization is he's a philosopher on epistemology.
Gabriel Zanotti, you said?
Zanotti. Let me see if I can type it here. Gabriel Zanotti. With double I think. Zanotti. Amazing guy. Like, you learn so much. Gabriel, he's not happy with Milei in everything, but you know.
Gabriel S.I.
Z. Zanotti. Double T, I think.
Zanotti. Not finding him at all.
Yeah. For example, I mean, it's going to be weird, but he has some lectures online through I don't know if you're familiar with Universidad Francisco Marroquín in Guatemala. It's the most libertarian university in the world.
Definitely. Yeah, that's okay. The libertarian.
Yeah, and they have some English lectures, by the way. If you guys are familiar, finding some of the English ones, and they're pretty good too. In their website, he has like 9 lectures on Austrian epistemology, and the guys go through. It truly is like imagine if you took an epistemology class through using libertarian authors, and he quotes Ortega y Gasset. A moment. There's so many good sayings from Ortega. Says people get together to be together. Oh, the one of my favorite ones is the individual is himself and his circumstances. If the individual does not save his circumstances, he cannot save himself. The context was an individual, but we love to talk about individuals, depends and loves family, friends, city, neighborhood, soccer team, whatever. If the individual does not worry about those things that he cares about, he cannot save himself. So yeah, we're individuals, and but the social context in which you find yourself is also very important, because just for the fact that you supposedly you want to change it, okay, then you need to understand it and accept it first, so that you can do some type of force of change. So then the individual is himself and his circumstances. If the individual does not save his circumstances, cannot save himself. Those little bits of wisdom from, and I think this has to do with the Spanish libertarian context. A lot of the thinkers are not overly concerned with, say, ideological purity. There's a very healthy movement inside of Spanish libertarian that they're truly not overly concerned with, libertarian, to be puritanical. Because they see on a daily basis, like, okay, dude, you can tell me about all this stuff. Like the example I give you, like, we usually make jokes about about the fact that Milei doesn't want to decriminalize drugs right away, based upon the same things. Well, you go talk to people, yeah, upper class upper class people in Argentina or in Spain or in Argentina mainly, yeah, maybe decriminalizing drugs is a big deal for them, but the rest of the population, trust me, it's totally not a priority. So libertarians in Argentina and obviously us too, we're gonna have to deal with their circumstances. If you don't save the circumstances, like making sure that people have a predictable income in real terms so they can buy stuff, your idea of decriminalizing drugs and all the other cool things you want, they're never going to happen because you're not, in order to save yourself, you need to save your circumstances first so that what you want in life can actually happen. And we're going to have to think in terms of groups. Other people help us improve our circumstances. We're going to have to deal with it.
Yes, we will. Yeah, it's yeah. So yeah, Zanotti. Yeah. There's a lot of also Cervantes, who wrote the Don Quixote, is also part of that Spanish tradition of liberalism.
That's such a good insight. I think you might be right that Cervantes did have has some connection with libertarianism. Uh, some strains. I think that's usually the way we call it.
Yeah, well, some people have told me, that he was. I've heard that this actually influenced Jefferson to a certain degree. So
that's so true. That is so true.
Jefferson was so well read, and
yes,
of course, back then especially, you were expected to learn all those languages. Jefferson was Spain had a lot of influence on America's founding, a lot more than people realize.
Yeah, because they were able to develop, like, for good and for evil, they were able to develop a lot of their literature way before America was, and that did influence non Spanish speakers, and when they did translations and things like that. But I'm glad you
because they got the Renaissance before England did, or
say it again.
Was that because they got the Renaissance before England did, or
more than likely? I think you're correct. There was enough wealth post 1500s, right? That
yeah.
Quixote was, when was it written? Quixote.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting. Of course, Zanotti is still alive, so.
Yeah, if you find anything in English from Zanotti, I will highly recommend. Okay, yeah, if I'm right, between 1605 and 1615. There you go. That's actually they call it El Siglo de Oro Español, the golden century of Spain, because they have like the amount of thinkers from there. Actually, one of my favorite thinkers, some people know, is Luis de Molina from the Salamanca School of Thought.
Yeah,
1600s. There you go. And he had theological, philosophical, and economic. Like, for example, a lot of people maybe it doesn't mean much, but it means a lot to me. Besides the fact that he was discussing some stuff that are called middle knowledge, has to do with theological stuff, he was one of the first ones to say, wait a minute, those checks, those accounting notations in banks, those are money. Those promises that the bank make to people transfer as if it was just regular money. We have to actually acknowledge it. And you see, back in the days, for them, it was like, yeah, they give me a loan. And so, what is the money? It says, well, they just give it to us. They didn't know what was going on. I said, no, this is promises that the bank make. And these little details for you and I right now, well, yeah, we know that. No, nobody knew anything about that. And in the 1600s, Quixote, Molina, it was actually pretty amazing. For sure, because I know the economics, but the literature was great, and that ended up influencing. Actually, Juan de Mariana was super libertarian for a context. I think he was even in favor of Juan de Lugo. Was another one. There's another smallish think tank that is called Juan de Lugo, but it's in the same thing. It was a bunch of 1600 Spanish. A lot of them were priests. But when they were talking about politics, they were discussing the individual, the fact that governments can and have become abusive, that people should revolt against abuses, and those ones ended up influencing the American Revolution, and obviously maybe the French Revolution. French Revolution took it to a level. I remember, if I remember correctly, the point of Burke was says, wait a minute, this thing about the French Revolution has nothing to do with what with the American Revolution. The American Revolution, it was more about decentralization. It says the French Revolution is about institutionalizing disorder. That's what the person says. This is not freedom. This is not revolution. This is just a bunch of disorder, and people are how to say cheering at us if he was meant something. He said, no, this is gonna and I think he did say, he says, what's gonna happen, you're gonna have like a dictator come along. Right away, Napoleon came along. We're
Yes.
probably like this, you cannot have a society that it's
Yeah.
fantasizing about revolution every 5 seconds. Like nobody likes that kind of disorder. In Argentina, what's the big deal? That disorder that it was semi manageable. The piquetes, the protests that were closing that makes a mess out of the city. The daily life of the city is incredibly disrupted. How many people are gonna want to put up with that every single day? Oh, it's because
Yeah.
it's a revolution. We're taking back our institute. Well, you can take out whatever you want. In the meantime, can we please make it to work? Because I need to go work. I need to come back. I need to make it to family. I need to watch my sports team and so on and so on and so forth. And therefore, that's what was gonna happen. And we're glad that Milei was the one that came along, and Milei came along and tried to liberalize society, which is great, and he took advantage of that. But the point is, a lot of that nonsense, extreme revolution or extreme change, was
Yeah.
lifestyle in Argentina. So Argentines at some point said, "Forget about it. This is just too much." And then even people that would never be libertarians didn't mind voting for Milei because he promised, "Look, guys, this is a mess. Okay, I'm gonna fix the mess. I'm gonna give you predictability. I'm gonna give you order." Most conservatives are like, give me order, that's all I need. Whatever weird ideas, you can talk to your dog all you want, as long as I can make it to work back and forth. And those are the things that we're dealing in Argentina. We're not dealing with Twitter, how to say, philosophical debates. We're dealing with people having to make it from home to work and back. That's the first step. There you go. That's the first step we
Yeah.
want to take.
Yeah.
We can discuss political philosophy later on, but right now we need to make it from point A to point B. Can we actually do it? And once you do it, okay, then you can start discussing more details.
Yeah. He's also, it looks like he's going to be liberalizing the currencies. Quote, there will be free this is also a translation by Bertide Mara. There will be free competition of currencies. So if you want to use Bitcoin, there will be no problems. And you can also use other units such as WTI, BTU, and the one that is most appropriate for your business in accounting terms, unquote. So that's a good sign as well. Yes, if we're going to have, what it means is that the peso is going to lose by attrition because these other currencies will just take over. Yes. And
what is going to end up happening is that the pesos, the existing pesos, that's a different story.
Yes.
The existing pesos are going to stay very similar. This happened in Somalia, where the government went away.
Yeah, the pesos.
And you would think, oh, the currency they created is going to disappear. No, it didn't. People continued to use it, even though it was super devalued and all that, because they needed for small change. And they started noticing that it wasn't losing value anymore because the supply, because the supply was fixed. That's what's going to happen to the Argentine peso. Right now, the commitment is to, right now, they're not going to create any more pesos because they already took care of like all the debts and all that kind of stuff. So from here on, no pesos. And now you're actually looking at certain categories of the CPI from Argentina, the Consumer Price Index. The last couple of months, they haven't experienced deflation. Prices actually, on average, are going down, mainly on food, which is really like the other ones are going up. So it makes the average cost of living going a little bit high, like 4%, 3%, which is high for you and I, but for Argentines, it's amazing. It used to be like 25 a month. And now it's back down to like 4%, 3%. But in some food items, they're actually going down little by little. Those categories, and that's exactly what has happened. Why? Because the new policy now finally is from here on no more new money creation. So more than likely, what's going to happen is the Argentine peso is going to stay in circulation for small change. For example, in Venezuela, which dollarization was very informal, people started using dollars back and forth, but to make small payments or give change, it was very difficult. This was amazing. The Bolivar, today is a little bit different, but let's say 2020, 2021, the Bolivar started gaining purchasing power because now people wanted to use it because they knew, oh, great, I don't have to keep it with me, but if I keep a little bit, I can use it for small change. So more than likely, the peso, since it's not gonna, there's gonna be no more pesos. There's gonna be no more new pesos. The existing pesos are gonna stay for small change, and people are going to want it because they know that it's not gonna be diluted anymore. But they're gonna close the central bank. The existing physical pesos are gonna stay for small change, and then people can use whatever. As you said, they're gonna be signing contracts in dollars. There was a couple of people that were signing in dollars, but they were gonna get paid in Bitcoin, which makes perfect sense. I've done things like that where you sign it in dollars, but send me Bitcoin when you pay me. So the amount of options that can come out of Argentina when it comes to the monetary system is going to be very interesting, because now they have the freedom to pretty much use whatever they think. The normal, just everybody knows, the norm tends to be that everybody starts using the US dollar because it's like a language. Even if you hate the language, you have to speak it to others. So you don't speak the language you like, you speak the
Yes.
language that people understand you. So the norm is going to be that most people, their accounting is going to be in dollars, but they're going to get paid in dollars, pesos, foreign currency, Bitcoin, whatever that you can imagine. That's more than likely what is going to end up happening. But they have the freedom. Before, legally, they couldn't even go and buy dollars in the streets. Today, it's not just that they can buy dollars, which is great.
Yeah.
They can sign contracts in whatever they want.
Another interesting, we're talking about currencies, just recently the La Rioja tried to issue its own currency. This is one of the Argentine provinces, and it went down 99% almost immediately.
I
against the peso. It's like, oh my goodness.
Oh wow, for real, against the peso?
Against the Argentine peso. So immediately they said, like,
they didn't want
we don't trust this. So
crazy.
Well,
I think it was Milei himself and his followers were like, yeah, dude, you can try to create a currency if people want it. They said, pues that's they make this joke that it was like every time you unintentionally agree with Milei, they put this meme from, I don't know if you're familiar with Goku and whatever, that's a big thing in Latin America.
Yeah.
And there's a meme that says, oh, welcome to the forces of heaven. Forces of heaven is how to say the terminology that now Milei supporters are using. Yeah, that you're joining the libertarian. I usually say, like, imagine how cool the whole campaign was, that instead of joining libertarianism, you ended up joining the forces of heaven. Yeah, sure. Yes. You see that the cultural change is huge when you start looking at libertarians, and in your brain, the first word that comes into your mind is first Goku, which is a big deal in Latin America. And then on top of that, you're thinking forces of heaven instead of like libertarians. Well, there was a huge cultural change that libertarians perform in Argentina.
Yeah. It's really amazing. Yeah, some other developments too. We got some more updates from Bowtie Mara. The government eliminated all regulations that capped internet, cell phone, and cable rates. The obtained 8.4 trillion in the debt tender in the pesos that cover maturities, and obtained surplus that will pay the maturity of sovereign bonds in dollars. Due to the crisis, more brands freeze their prices due to reactivate sales from supermarket chains to gas stations. Some companies will maintain their prices till 2025. Decline in consumption and unemployment under those still fairly high, though, unfortunately. But
yeah, you familiar with Bowtie with Mara?
Yeah, that's from Bowtie Mara. I'm just summarizing. Also, cut 275 people from the now non-existent Ministry of Women. So that's gone. Think about that.
No, it was crazy. I mean, it depended on why you think of this. The amount of, and this is the problem. Usually, when you get good causes, the first thing they would do, hey, you have to do ministry of, so that you look cool and whatever. And you hire a bunch of people that don't do anything at all. And it literally just a jobs program. Like every time something becomes popular, boom, immediately some kind of ministry of whatever. And what do? Nothing. That's it. Actually, sometimes they were making these jokes that as soon as they created them in Argentina, the Ministry of Women, actually, the problems women face in Argentina went up instead of down. And we know that it wasn't the reason why we know that it wasn't the fault, quote unquote, of the Minister of Women over there is because they literally don't do anything. So there's no way that they could have affected anything. It's just that, like, it was just ridiculous that it's not just
Yes.
they don't help, things go bad and they don't do anything because they see it as nothing more than a source of income. They see the government as a source of income.
Yeah.
They don't see the government as something, not even to apply change. I guess, once in a while apply change, because the priorities of it, that their concern is a source of income. And post some stuff on you on was make jokes like, what do they do? So they post stuff on Twitter, the gnocchis, which is the burgers. They post stuff on Twitter and drink a lot of yerba mate all day long, with a couple of snacks, and then they go home and they continue talking to their friends about whatever. But it's literally just a source of income. It has nothing to do with performing any kind of social function at all.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not. It's I love what you told me about Milei being popular with kids. I think that is just amazing. If you can imagine, maybe putting out his own little cartoon series or putting out kids' books, that I think would explain all this.
That's what's gonna happen. That is what is gonna have to happen. I think Milei should, as soon as he's done with how to say being a president, because I think that will be a mess. He needs to come out with like cartoon characters, like stories and things like that, because I think that's what's gonna, get the Kirchneristas, or like how to say, the opposition, Argentine opposition, to be
Yes.
the evil ones, and all that kind of stuff. The Justice League, maybe we can actually see it. Having the Justice League fight against, and it's just Milei with all his friends and things like that. And the reason why I think it's actually end up happening, is going to happen, is precisely because one of the advantages of having someone like Milei, he's very histrionic, I guess. He's a performer, above all. He was a
Oh yeah.
he was gonna be a goalie, soccer goalie, but he couldn't because some of the famous soccer players actually hurt him very badly. He couldn't. But then he was in opera. He was a singer. Therefore,
Yes.
he used the visuals and the performance to promote. Like, I think I shared with Bob Murphy one performance on national TV of him closing the central bank as the worst enemy, kind of like that, like the billion of all the problems is the central bank and all that kind of stuff, on national TV. Like, for libertarians, guys, seriously, are you gonna do that? Are you gonna go on national TV and talk how bad the central bank is and all that kind of stuff? Okay, in the meantime, please just keep it quiet for a while. Not because it's wrong to criticize, but because it's noticeable that you don't understand the opportunity cost and trade-offs that you have to go through so that you can be on TV and become a hero to the new generations.
Yes.
When you can do that, then we can talk about reality, because that's a real. I think it was in another show that I went to, I was like in that one actually went viral, because a lot of our Argentine libertarians that are pro Milei enjoyed it. And I said, guys, seriously, with all due respect, when you, as a regular libertarian, when you're able to go to like to have a rally, they're selling libertarian books, regular people are buying them and passing by you, asking you to sign books from Hayek, Mises, I think even Rand. When you achieve that, then it makes sense for you to, because you understand that there's other paths, other ways to do other paths. But the problem is that you're not giving us any paths. How do you achieve this? He yells too much. Okay, but he did achieve this, so it kind of tells you that it's kind of necessary to be wild in order to get the message out. If you don't like people that are well, makes sense, but just acknowledge that you're not going to achieve anything anywhere close than what he's going to achieve. Let's be realistic. There's nothing wrong with critiques. The problem is that critiques have to be realistic.
Yes.
Because when they're not realistic, they end up damaging the image, as if it was negative, and it's very difficult to even refute it, because, guys, like, this has nothing to do with reality. Just face it. Like, literally, this has nothing to do with reality. Your critiques are nice, but they only work in Twitter. They don't work in real life. And look at what he's doing. He's changing more than changing politics, which he is. He's changing culture in Argentina, which it was seen as impossible, but he's doing it. Well, that's going to take some very heavy trade-offs that neither you and I are going to like at every single step.
Yes, I mean, We can maybe get the I don't know if she is or not, but the libertarian version of Mafalda.
Mafalda is very popular over there. They have a libertarian version of Mafalda?
No, but maybe he can create a libertarian version of
Oh,
Mafalda.
I got you. Yes, definitely. I don't know if that's even legal. You're not gonna allow him, but I know he will try it at some point. I promise you, he will.
Yes, Mafalda is a very popular cartoon character in South America. So but I think she kind of looks like Nancy from Nancy and Sluggo in America. There's definitely a resemblance there, but she's big in South America. Yeah, it's cartoons always help. I think he made that cartoon Captain ANCAP as well. I think which helped, which was apparently inspired by Jack Lloyd, who is a comic artist here who does some comic books here in America.
But I just found it right now, but some way somehow I noticed that someone actually created like a coffee mug with Milei and Mafalda.
Oh wow, coffee mug with Milei and Mafalda.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know if he sells or anything, but the fact that it exists is already like it's already a win for freedom. I send you the.
Another good piece of news is the public news station Telam, which was created in 1945, has also been closed. It's really interesting how long it takes to get rid of these things once they're started. I mean,
but there you go. Think about it. That's such a good point from the sense, and it was like very cold. I mean, it's not just that they were eating up taxpayers' resources. Is that it was even cultish? They would do like I don't know. I forgot how they call it because they used to do this in China, like Mao China. When someone disagrees, like I'm kidding you not. Imagine in your job, someone disagrees politically or whatever, and then they do like a conference. How would you call those things? Like wrestling sessions or something like that. Like, what's wrong with you? And we don't want to kick you out, but you're evil. Like, just because you disagree with them, that's in taxpayers' time. Like, and it wasn't odd that they would actually do this very often, just to make sure that everyone in that government enterprise, that's what it was, everyone will be in the same side politically. It's absolutely Maoist. Then that's the issue. A lot of the anti-libertarians, let's call it Kirchneristas or Peronistas in Argentina, adopted a lot. Like, they learn among each other that they're not dumb. Like, they're actually, sadly, they're very talented. They imitated a lot of things, like a Maoist style of using culture and groups to try to push their views on you, so that at least you stay quiet and your income is in danger. By the way, they went through all this stuff, and these are the things that Milei's. I mean, seriously, closing that institution, it's already such a big win that it doesn't matter what people say outside of Argentina. Argentines are better off right now, literally, objectively speaking. They're better off than before Milei.
Yeah, and if they can see real improvements, I mean, I think he's going to probably. We'll see what happens next year with the chamber elections. Hopefully, he can get more people there, and we can move on from that. So should be a good development. Well, I think this is a good place to close off right now. We've discussed a lot of what's happening, so it's you're certainly keeping track of what's going on too. Yeah. So yes.
By the way, I'm gonna be in Freedom Fest. Hopefully, Milei is gonna be there. And just so you guys know, if you guys want to come and talk to me, the Libertarian Christian Institute is gonna be there. I'm gonna be on the booth. If you guys want to chit chat and all that kind of stuff, you guys are more than welcome.
I'm hearing mixed reports on this. I'm going to show this. Let's show the Milei Mafalda mug. This should be cute. Yeah, it should be.
Oh yeah,
absolutely lovely. Yeah, since you shared it with me, said yeah, we're going to show this Milei Mafalda mug. Yeah, there's a stability, security, free market, education, meritocracy, and efficiency. Yes, Milei 2025, and there
you go.
Mafalda looking up at him. Yeah, that's yeah. So now you know who Mafalda is. Yeah, she's everywhere in South America.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I think there's even like a YouTube channel of Mafalda Libertaria.
Yeah, well, Milei's starting to get. He's influencing. He might not just save Argentina. Maybe he might indirectly save South America. I mean, let's hope so.
No, no, no. And I was in Buenos Aires
Yeah.
last November. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be there. By the way, guys, all of you guys are invited to go to a Bitcoin conference, November the 1st and the 2nd in Buenos Aires. Um,
Latin
Bob
American
Murphy,
Bitcoin Conference again.
yes, 2024.
Yeah.
Invited. I'm gonna be in charge of sort of the economics panels and all that kind of stuff.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
part of the staff. Um, you guys are fully invited. And the first thing I said, because one very close friend, Ali, she was born in Bolivia. She came to the United States a little bit later, and she married an Argentine. So she knows Argentina really well in Latin America, right? And
Yeah.
she told me before Milei won, wow, easily like a year, 2 years before, she was saying Argentina is very important, at least Latin America, now the whole world, because she noticed, she's been married, I'm gonna make up something like 10 years or so. And throughout her 10 years that she has to keep track of what happens in Bolivia, United States, and now Argentina because of her husband, she notices that everything that happens in Bolivia and other countries in Latin America always happens first in Argentina. Every crazy idea and good idea happens in Argentina first and then starts spreading out a couple of months later. And I was like, you're right. I mean, I never thought about it that way because I follow Argentine politics. I just didn't, because I'm a little more focused on the macro stuff than in the cultural
Yeah.
thing. But obviously, you kind of follow a little bit, right? And I never thought
Yeah.
about it, that it's true. And I remember like last year when in the conference, I was telling the audience, guys, whatever you guys do here, and you don't have to worry about it. You guys were chosen by destiny, by the destiny. You guys
Yes.
are the leaders of Latin America. If you guys improve Argentina, you don't have to worry about Latin America. So don't worry. Like, I was like, it's not your responsibility. But if you guys improve Argentina, necessarily just by concept, by social consequence, you will improve Latin America because they would follow you, and that's what happened with uh, with uh, with Milei. That whatever he does is will impact the rest of Latin America, and today it actually impacted Europe. So far, I understand because I have limited knowledge. A lot of the right wing movement in
Yes.
move away in Europe was honestly fueled by the sheer personality
Yeah.
of Milei. That seriously, those advantages that we have, those benefits, they're always going to be net benefits because all the
Yeah.
negative stuff that you can talk about Milei, which obviously he's not perfect, you have to put into consideration very heavily the impact that he has, and it was predictable. He has this. He's an over the top personality. Over the top personality will change the world. That's almost like a prerequisite. And so we have to wait and see.
Well, he certainly seems like he's getting friendly with Giorgia Meloni in Italy. They seem to like each other really well.
But you know why?
Yeah.
It's a cultural thing, and actually they love him in Italy. Before that happened, she's responding really well. Almost
Yeah.
all Italians, at least on the right wing, love him. One of the reasons is because for Italians,
Yeah.
although Argentines don't speak Italian formally, we make the jokes. Argentines are Italians that speak Spanish but dress English.
Yeah. Well,
And
there's the languages aren't that far apart either. I
no,
suspect.
and imagine like
Yeah.
since they're so close to each other, and there's a lot of Argentines, that tone of the Argentine Spanish. I have my parents are Mexican, so
Yeah.
my accent is Mexican in Spanish, and I usually laugh because you know that if you didn't, you can
Yes.
actually hear the Italian tones and inflections
Yeah.
when they speak, and the one that you notice the most is Millet because he's very histrionic. He overemphasizes. He's really good at that. Overemphasizes words, underemphasizes, and whether he notices or not, the Italian accent and the Italian tones and inflections are there all the time. So one of the reasons why he was so popular on TV is because literally when he was singing or talking or explaining something, there was a little bit of opera to it. I'm kidding you
Yeah.
not. I think it was Bob asked me like, "Hey, are these memes like the translation of the videos? Are they accurate? Because the things that the translations say are so over the top." And I said, "No, they fall short by far, and it's difficult to translate it because since he's using a lot of like Argentine lingo tonality, when you learn Spanish and you listen to that, you say this is the greatest thing in the world because it's just the message is over the top and it's
Yeah.
amazing, but the delivery goes even beyond. So if you're gonna learn, you probably all libertarians want to learn Spanish. I'm kidding you not. I'm not joking. Just for the sheer enjoyment of watching him make the libertarian case on national TV. We did the amount he spent making the libertarian case at least available, at least 15 hours. They put it together in only one gigantic YouTube channel. If not all, most of his appearances on national TV, 50. There were some debates that were 3 hours where he mentions Bob. He starts mentioning libertarian authors. Oh yeah, I read this. Blah, 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 blah. Sometimes there were debates of 2 hours on national TV at night, maybe, but they were still on national TV, and you have them on YouTube for you to watch. Literally, you can just sit down and watch him talk about libertarianism. Like remember, like people were obsessed with Ron Paul videos
Yeah.
back in the days. Well, this is exactly the same thing, but someone that is a official singer, actor, and how to say, and a performer.
And
So just imagine the same thing, but like take it to the top.
and,
You guys should learn Spanish just to enjoy watching
it's,
him talk about libertarianism.
and it's probably easier for Argentines to understand Italians than it is for them to understand Chileans. But
Sir, we don't talk about those topics in public.
but
Now, my Chilean friends always make jokes about it. By the way, just there's a weird thing. This is a pure cultural thing, just in case you guys see it, because of soccer. Okay, soccer.
yes,
It makes a little. There's a hate relationship between Mexicans and Argentines. I don't belong to that
because of
thing,
soccer. Yes,
because of soccer stuff, and it's funny because the Argentine national team is way better than the Mexican team, but in Mexico, the Mexican culture is very, and almost everybody knows, but make jokes about it like as if it was like 1-to-1 relation, because there's no way that you can have a relation. But Chileans always support us. I don't remember why is it that they always support Mexico. I can't remember that one. But there's a lot, like a very close between Chile and between Chile and Mexico. So usually the ones that are of Mexican descent, like me, we never like to say anything negative in public about Chileans. Oh, yes. In private we say everything, right? But it's more of a joke that we kind of like side with Chileans against the rest of Latin America or something like that.
Well, it already looks like OXXO has taken their plans for world domination to Chile since they've already taken over Mexico.
I think it has a lot to do when there were a lot of liberalization in the 80s and 90s. Since Chile, people don't know this, but for Americans, just so you guys know that most of what you eat in the winter comes from Chile. Like because the relations are so close. One of the reasons why it comes from Chile is because Chile had a good relationship with Mexico, and through Mexico, a lot of their products make it to the United States. So there is a very close relationship between Mexican economy and the Chilean economy because they're so big and very well connected in the supply chain with from Chile, Mexico, and United States. That supply chain is actually very important.
Yes. Yeah, and it's easy shipping. Well, it's been great having you on here. We can find you on Twitter, and so it's been great. I think
Ááron Sepúlveda-Z. No, Ááron Sepúlveda-C. Yeah, you go. No Z. I have a hard time with that one. Ááron Sepúlveda-C on Twitter. That's where I post most of the stuff. Yeah. Usually, I cover macroeconomics of the United States, obviously because I'm an American. A little bit of Mexico because my parents were Mexicans, and now because I'm following all the details in Argentina, I follow them very closely. And as some friends have said, the best place to learn macroeconomics and monetary policy is Argentina, because everything that is wrong has been performed there. So you can actually learn like, hey, it didn't work here.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's been great having you on here. Please go buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Check out my Substack. Please follow this channel, subscribe, and like the video. Approve it. Yes, and I'm Chris Baker. Thank you, Ááron. We're out.